In the glittering banquet hall, everyone turned away at once, not because they didn't see, but because they chose to pretend they didn't. Victoria Stone, CEO of Stone Hospitality Group, the most powerful woman in Las Vegas, swayed unsteadily by the bar. Her sequin dress shimmered under the lights, her cocktail glass tilting dangerously in her hand. All around, dozens of phones were raised not to help but to capture the humiliating moment. In that crowd, one man froze in place. Michael Foster, a maintenance worker on the 15th floor. Every instinct in him screamed, "Don't get involved. This isn't your business." But Victoria's eyes suddenly met his, not the eyes of a powerful CEO, but the eyes of a human being desperate for someone to reach out. And Michael thought of Emma, his 9-year-old daughter who often asked Daddy if everyone turns away, then who will be the first to step forward? Michael put down his cloth. He walked past the mocking stares, past the murmurs. What's he trying to do? Looking for attention. Natalie Harris, a senior executive, even smirked. Let her handle it herself. Why get involved? But Michael didn't stop. He had no idea that this seemingly small decision would change both his and his daughter's lives. Not because of money, not because of a title, but because of one important lesson: sometimes doing the right thing quietly is when it matters most. 5:00 a.m. in Las Vegas. While most of the city still slept after its dazzling nights, Michael Foster had already been up since 4:30. Not because he liked waking early, but because it was the only way to prepare breakfast for his daughter before heading to his shift. The father and daughter lived in a small apartment in the old downtown area, a place where ambulance sirens echoed through the night, where the air conditioner rattled as if it could break down any moment. Simple as it was still the only home they had left. In the bathroom, Michael looked into the mirror, a 42-year-old man with graying hair, the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes deeper than the year before. On the shelf, a small photo frame sat neatly, the only remaining picture of Sarah, his wife, who had passed away from cancer 3 years ago. He remembered vividly those final nights in the hospital when Sarah held his hand and whispered, "Promise me, Michael. Let Emma see that no matter how harsh life gets, kindness is always the most important thing." He had promised, but 3 years later, sometimes Michael wondered if he still had the strength to keep that promise, when in order to raise his daughter, he had sacrificed almost everything, even himself. A clear little voice called from the bedroom, "Daddy, are you making pancakes?" Emma's voice was as sweet as the morning sun. Michael quickly wiped away the tear he hadn't realized had fallen, then smiled and replied, "Of course, Princess. Daddy's making them now." Emma ran out her hair still messy, wearing purple pajamas with unicorn prints. 9 years old, yet her bright eyes seemed to be observing the whole world. She hopped onto a chair, rested her chin in her hands, and studied her father seriously. "Daddy, you didn't sleep enough, did you?" Michael froze. "How do you know? Because you have dark circles, and when you smile, your eyes don't smile with you." Michael set down the steaming pancakes on the table and sat across from her. "You're too smart for your own good." Emma shrugged. "I learned it from you. You also pretend you're fine, but really you're very tired." He fell silent. Sometimes this 9-year-old understood him better than he understood himself. "Daddy," Emma tilted her head, her voice gentle. "Today is the day you go to the party, right?" "Yeah, but I don't really want to go." "Why not?" "Because I don't belong there. I'm just maintenance staff." Emma softly placed her small hand on his. "What did Mommy use to tell me?" Michael swallowed hard. "She said no one is ever just something. Everyone matters. Then you have to go. Maybe you'll meet someone important, or maybe you'll do something important." Michael let out a small, weary laugh. "You sound like a prophet for a 9-year-old." Emma shook her head seriously. "I'm not a prophet, but I know if you keep avoiding everything, you'll never see the good things waiting ahead." He gazed at his daughter silently. 9 years old, but sometimes Emma felt like an old soul who had lived 100 years. "All right," he sighed, "I'll go, but only for an hour." Emma squealed with delight. "Yes, and make sure to dress nicely. Mommy used to say you were really handsome." Someone on the other side of Las Vegas, in a penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Strip, Victoria Stone was already awake and dressed at 6 a.m. Not because she had to, but because sleep had eluded her. Today marked 10 years since her father's death, 10 years of guilt and unresolved pain. At 40, Victoria had achieved more than most people do in a lifetime. She had transformed Stone Hospitality from a single struggling casino into the third largest hotel chain in Las Vegas. Business magazines called her brilliant, ruthless, innovative. Her employees called her the Ice Queen, behind her back, never to her face. Victoria stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, the morning sun painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. In the reflection of the glass, she saw not the powerful CEO in her tailored black suit, but a woman who had lost her way. She reached into her pocket and pulled out an old, worn photograph. A dark-skinned man in a maintenance uniform smiling beside a small, black-haired girl, Thomas Stone, and his daughter, Julie, before she became Victoria, before she became the Ice Queen. She tucked the photo away as her phone buzzed with the first of hundreds of emails and messages that would demand her attention today. But today was different. Today was the anniversary, and for the first time in years, Victoria felt the ice around her heart beginning to crack. Stone Hospitality Group's flagship hotel, The Crown, rose 40 stories above the Las Vegas Strip, its glass exterior reflecting the desert sun like a monument to luxury and excess. On the 15th floor, Michael Foster pushed his maintenance cart down the hallway, checking items on his clipboard. This had been his life for 3 years now, fixing leaky faucets, changing light bulbs, unclogging toilets. Not glamorous work, but it paid the bills. Most of the time, "Morning, Foster," a familiar voice called out. Robert Davis, a 55-year-old African-American man who had worked maintenance at the Crown for over a decade, approached with his own cart. "Morning, Robert. How's it going?" Same old, toilet on 1507 backed up again. Third time this month," Michael nodded, understanding the frustration. They worked hard, often unseen and unappreciated. "Hey, you going to the big anniversary party tonight?" Robert asked as they worked side by side. Michael shrugged. "I don't know. Not really my scene." Robert snorted. "Mine either, but word came down mandatory for all employees. Something about building company culture. 25 years since the first Stone Hotel opened." As they worked, Michael's attention drifted to a conversation around the corner. Two executives' voices low but clear in the empty hallway. "We need to cut costs somewhere, and staff is the obvious place. These maintenance guys make, what, $12 an hour? Most of them don't even have high school diplomas." Michael's jaw tightened. He had a high school diploma. He'd even started community college before Sarah got sick. "The CEO wants the restructuring plan on her desk by Monday." The voice continued. "Let's start with reducing maintenance staff by 15%. They won't even notice if we spread the work around." Oh, they'd notice, Michael thought bitterly. They'd notice when they were already working 12-hour shifts, when they could barely see their families, when their bodies ached from the physical labor. But people like that would never understand. They'd never fixed anything with their hands. Never worried about choosing between paying the electric bill or buying groceries. Michael and Robert exchanged glances, but said nothing. What could they say? Jobs were scarce, especially ones that worked around Emma's school schedule. He couldn't risk it. "Did you hear Victoria Stone herself is going to be at the party tonight?" Robert whispered after the executives had left. "First time in 3 years she's shown up to a staff function. The Ice Queen in person, huh?" Robert nodded. "That's what they call her. Never smiles, they say. Turned that small casino into an empire, but left her heart somewhere along the way." Michael thought about Victoria Stone. He'd only seen her in company photographs and occasional news stories. Always perfectly composed, always cool and professional. The perfect businesswoman. The opposite of someone like him, someone who fixed broken things for a living. That evening, Michael stood before his closet, choosing the only decent shirt he had left. He thought of Sarah, of the promise he had made to his wife, of how Emma had to grow up without her mother's touch. A single father working 12 hours a day, was that good enough? He fastened the navy blue tie Emma had given him, telling himself just 1 hour, then home. But Michael had no idea that single hour would change his entire life. The Crown Hotel rooftop party was unlike anything Michael had ever experienced. White string lights stretched across the space, glittering like a galaxy in the night sky. A long bar covered in glossy black marble. A DJ mixing electronic beats, creating an atmosphere both vibrant and luxurious. And in the distance, the full view of the Las Vegas Strip casino towers blazing like volcanoes of light. In that scene, Michael Foster walked in. It felt like stepping into another world, a world of $2,000 suits, handcrafted Italian leather shoes, and confident laughter from people born to be familiar with power. And him, a discounted shirt from Target slacks, 3 years old, and worn-out leather shoes polished until the soles were nearly gone. "Foster, you made it." Robert waved him over, looking equally uncomfortable in his dress clothes. What are you doing here too? Michael walked over. Mandatory, remember, HR said, encouraging all employees to attend to build company culture. Robert shrugged with a wry smile. But just look around. How many here look like us? Michael glanced around. Robert was right. Among more than 200 guests, only 5 or 6 were dressed simply. The rest belonged to another world where power and money determine one's place. Robert poured Michael a glass of soda and warned, stay away from alcohol. Embarrassing yourself here would be trouble. Michael smiled faintly. Don't worry, that's not my habit. The two stood in the corner, watching the crowd like outsiders. Michael quickly noticed Natalie Harris, the marketing director, standing by the bar, champagne glass in hand, laughing freely with a group of executives. Her eyes flicked over Michael for just a second, then turned away as if he were completely invisible. That feeling was nothing new. To most people here, men like Michael and Robert weren't colleagues. They were service staff, silent shadows. Foster, have you seen Victoria Stone yet? Robert asked. No, I heard she's coming tonight. First time in 3 years she rarely shows up at these, Robert chuckled. She became CEO at 35, took a small casino and turned Stone Hospitality into the third largest resort chain in Las Vegas. They call her the Ice Queen. No one's ever seen her truly smile. Michael looked toward the main entrance. The Ice Queen. He suddenly wondered, had anyone ever asked why a woman would hide her smile so completely? And then she appeared. Victoria Stone entered like a cold wind, black hair cascading down a silver sequin dress hugging her figure, blood-red high heels. The entire room fell silent for a moment. Then thunderous applause erupted. Victoria smiled, a perfect, polite smile, but one that never reached her eyes. She raised her hand in greeting. Thank you all for coming. Please enjoy the evening. With that, she strode straight to the bar. Robert whispered, look, the Ice Queen has arrived. But in Michael's eyes, she wasn't a cold queen. All he saw was a woman trying desperately to hold on to a flawless mask. As Michael observed from his corner, something caught his eye. Near the entrance, a small exhibition had been set up, photographs chronicling the 25-year history of Stone Hospitality. Curious, he wandered over while Robert chatted with another maintenance worker. The photos showed the evolution of the company, the first small casino, the expansion, the rebranding. But one photo in particular made Michael stop cold. It was old, slightly faded, showing a man in a maintenance uniform standing proudly in front of a small casino called Lucky 7. The plaque beneath it read Thomas Stone, 1952-2015 maintenance supervisor at Lucky 7 Casino, father of our founder and CEO, Victoria Stone. Michael stared at the image. Victoria Stone, the Ice Queen, was the daughter of a maintenance worker, just like Emma was the daughter of a maintenance worker. Something about this revelation shifted something in Michael's perception. He looked back at Victoria, still at the bar, and saw her differently now. An hour passed. Michael was still standing in the corner, with Robert slowly sipping a soda that had long gone flat. On the party floor, the executives were still chatting and laughing, each trying to get closer to Victoria Stone, as if she were a living treasure. But something wasn't right. Victoria had drained her third cocktail, then a fourth. The fifth glass landed on the bar with such force that liquid spilled over the rim. Derek Wells, the bartender, frowned slightly, but when Victoria motioned, he still poured another. Nearby, Natalie Harris tilted her head and sneered to another director. Look at that. The Ice Queen seems to be melting tonight. Laughter rippled out. Michael only frowned silently. By 9:30, Victoria left her bar stool. Her steps wavered, her red heels clipped the leg of a table, and she nearly fell. She clutched the edge of the table, burst out laughing, not a joyful laugh, but an empty, harsh sound like a mask cracking. I'm fine, she slurred, trying to drown out the attention. What are you all worried about? I'm still the CEO. I still control everything. No one responded. The entire room simply watched. Tiffany Nguyen, the young receptionist, whispered to an executive beside her. Should we call a car for her? The man shook his head firmly. Don't get involved. Let her handle it. And then phones came out all at once. At least 5 cameras aimed at Victoria. No one called a car. No one reached out. They only wanted to record. Oh my God, look at this, a woman's voice chuckled. The CEO drunk like this. It'll go viral for sure. Where to post it? A man asked. Not sure, but save it. It might come in handy. Robert stood next to Michael, his voice heavy. Foster, I don't like this. Neither did Michael. Before him, Victoria Stone, the most powerful CEO, was no longer the untouchable, icy figure. Tonight, she was just a drunk woman, abandoned in the very crowd that cheered her every day. Victoria dropped into a chair, covering her face with her hands. Her shoulders trembled. It wasn't clear if she was crying, but the way she hung her head, the way her body folded in on itself, this was no longer alcohol. This was collapse. Natalie Harris stepped forward, her voice laced with forced concern. "Miss Stone, do you want us to call someone?" Victoria lifted her head, her eyes bloodshot. "Call who, my brother, the one who hasn't spoken to me in 3 years? Or my friends, those people who only call when they need money?" Her voice cracked, trembling. Or call my father, all right. He's dead. 10 years. 10 years and I never even got to say sorry." A short, bitter laugh burst out, half pain, half self-mockery. Natalie faltered, stepping back awkwardly. "I just wanted to help." "Help?" Victoria snapped, narrowing her eyes. "You're recording me, aren't you? I see the phone in your pocket." Natalie froze, her face drained of color. The entire room sank into heavy silence. Then one by one, people began to slip away. Some stepped out to the balcony, others melted into the crowd. No one wanted to be caught in the scene of the Ice Queen melting right before their eyes. Robert sighed, whispering, "Foster, we should go. This isn't our business." Michael nodded faintly, but his feet didn't move. All he saw was Victoria, the woman once a symbol of power, now sitting alone, shoulders slumped like an abandoned child. In his mind flickered the image of Emma and Sarah's whispered it from years ago. Kindness is the most important thing. If one day Emma were in this situation, would he want the world to turn its back on his daughter? Michael set his soda down on the table. "Robert, I'm going to stay a while." Robert looked at him in surprise. "What are you planning to do?" "The right thing." He walked toward Victoria Stone. With each step, he felt the eyes of the entire room pressing against his back. Whispers spread. "What's he doing? Who is that? Oh, the maintenance guy. Really trying to be a hero." Michael didn't care. In his mind, only Emma's voice echoed, "Daddy, if someone needs help and no one helps, then who will be the first?" And at that very moment, Michael decided the first would be him. "Miss Stone." Michael's voice broke through the heavy air. Victoria lifted her head. Her eyes were bloodshot, her gaze unfocused as she tried to concentrate. Who are you, Michael Foster, ma'am? I maintain the 15th floor." She squinted as if trying to piece information together. Then a faint smile appeared, sad and bitter. "So the only one who stayed is the one I never once noticed." The words struck Michael not because of malice, but because they were painfully true. He spoke softly. "Let me take you home." Victoria shook her head, trying to brush it off. "No need, I can get home myself." But when she forced herself to stand, her legs wobbled and her body tilted to one side. Michael reached out just in time to steady her. Victoria sighed, her voice exhausted. "All right, you win. Take me home." Derek Wells, the bartender, hurried over, handing Victoria's coat to Michael. "Be careful," he murmured. "And thank you." Michael nodded, draped the coat over Victoria, and guided her toward the door. The room was wrapped in a strange silence. No one spoke, no one stopped them, but no one helped either. Natalie Harris stood near the door, champagne glass in hand, her eyes complicated, half curiosity, half shame. "Foster," she began, hesitating. Be careful." Michael didn't respond. He didn't know if it was concern or a warning. Michael's old sedan was parked at the farthest corner of the lot, the section for low-level employees. A 2008 Honda Civic. Its paint faded, the right taillight cracked the driver's seat, torn and patched with tape. When Michael opened the door, Victoria paused for a moment. Her eyes swept over the worn interior, then back at him. "This is your car?" "Yes, ma'am." A beat of silence, then she climbed in, buckled her seatbelt, and said nothing more. Michael started the engine. The car pulled out of the lot and onto the road. In the cramped cabin, the distance between him and the powerful CEO suddenly felt strangely close, and he realized, stripped of the spotlight, stripped of power, stripped of $1,000 suits, Victoria Stone was only the figure of a tired, wounded, lonely woman. The car glided slowly along the Las Vegas Strip. Outside, casinos blazed neon lights. Dance music pulsed from the clubs. People laughed, shouted, reveled. But inside the car, there was only silence. Victoria leaned her head against the window, her voice hoarse. "You know I hate this city." Michael glanced at her, surprised. But you're the CEO of Stone Hospitality. She let out a dry laugh. That's right. I built an empire in a place I hate. Ironic, isn't it? Michael stayed quiet. Victoria kept speaking as if to herself. My father used to say Las Vegas is a city of false dreams. People come here to forget their pain, but in the end they just sink deeper into it. She turned back to him, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. And now I'm part of that machine. I sell illusions. I sell dreams. But me, I don't have any dreams left. Michael swallowed, searching for the right words. Are you having a hard time? Victoria stayed silent for a long time. Then she nodded, her voice trembling. Today is the 10th anniversary of my father's death. 10 years and I still haven't been able to tell him I'm sorry. She quickly wiped away a tear rolling down her cheek. I'm sorry for forgetting my roots. Sorry for becoming someone he never wanted me to be. Sorry for abandoning everything he taught me. Her voice broke. Today, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself anymore. The car stopped by the side of a quiet street far from the flashing neon lights of the Strip. Street lamps cast their yellow glow. The night breeze rustled softly through the trees. Victoria was still crying but tried to suppress it as if ashamed to let a stranger see her weakness. Michael opened the glove compartment and pulled out a tissue box Emma had left there, scrawled across it in childish handwriting, "Daddy, don't forget to smile." He handed it to Victoria. She looked at the words, then turned to him with a faint, sorrowful smile. Your daughter wrote this? Yes, Emma, 9 years old. Emma? She repeated softly, wiping her tears. Beautiful name. She must love you very much. Michael nodded, his eyes lit with sincerity. And I love her. She's the reason I try every single day. Victoria sat in silence for a long moment, then exhaled gently, her eyes drifting far away. My father used to say the exact same thing. Her voice softened as if sinking into memory. His name was Thomas Stone. He died at 52 from lung cancer. He worked in chemical-heavy environments for 30 years, never had proper insurance. She paused, drawing a deep breath to steady herself. My father was a maintenance worker just like you. Back then, he worked at a small casino called Lucky 7. It's gone now, torn down to build a high-rise. The story flowed like a river she had held back for too long. My mother left when I was 5. It was just the two of us. My dad worked double shifts mornings at the casino, nights as a supermarket guard. He slept less than 4 hours a day, but he never once complained. Tears streamed down again as Victoria gave a bitter laugh through her chin. He used to say, Julie, sweetheart, I don't do this job because I like it, but because of you. One day you'll have a better life than I ever did. That's my dream. Michael felt his throat tighten. That story was too much like his own life. Victoria went on, when I was 12, my father was fired. The reason because he stood up for a colleague being harassed by the boss. He said it outright, that's not right. And then they let him go. She wiped her tears, her voice trembling. That day he came home pale-faced, but still told me, Julie, remember this, never stay silent in the face of injustice, even if it costs you. If you stay silent, you'll lose yourself. Michael asked softly, what did he do after that? He looked for another job, still as a maintenance worker, but at a smaller company. For less pay, worse conditions. Even so, he never let me see him sad. He always smiled, always encouraged me to study. Victoria turned to him, her eyes brimming. And do you know what the last thing he ever said to me was? Michael fell still, only shook his head faintly. Victoria broke down, sobbing aloud. He was lying in that hospital bed, skin and bones. I held his hand, sobbing, begging him not to go. And he smiled, stroked my hair, and whispered, Julie, sweetheart, I'm so proud of you. You've studied hard. You're about to enter college. But remember one thing, no matter how successful or wealthy you become, never forget your roots. Never look down on workers like me because they too have dreams, families, their own pain. They deserve respect. Victoria buried her face in her hands, her sobs choking. And I promised I would never forget. But I forgot Michael. I forgot everything. Michael sat motionless. He knew that feeling, the weight of a promise carried in your heart, yet unfulfilled. Victoria wiped her tears and continued, her voice hoarse. After my dad died, I threw myself into success. I studied business, worked like mad, wanted to prove that a maintenance worker's daughter could stand at the top. She let out a bitter laugh. And I did it. At 25, I became director of a small casino. At 30, I bought it, renamed it Stone Hospitality. At 35, I turned it into the third largest resort chain in Las Vegas. She bit her lip, her voice breaking. But along the way, I lost myself. I grew cold, treated people like tools. I fired employees without caring why. I cut wages to raise profits. I I became the kind of person my father hated most. Victoria looked straight into Michael's eyes, hers glistening. And tonight, when I was drunk, when I fell, all the people I thought were colleagues, friends, they turned their backs. They filmed me, mocked me. No one helped. She clutched Michael's hand, trembling. But you, a man, I never once noticed a man. I dismissed as just a maintenance worker. You were the only one who stepped forward. And in that moment, I saw my father in you. I saw the kindness I lost. I saw the person I was meant to be. She sobbed, whispering, "Thank you, Michael. Thank you for reminding me who I used to be." Michael held her hand firmly, his voice earnest. "You don't need to thank me. I only did what anyone should do. Help when someone needs it." Victoria shook her head, tears falling. "No, Michael, not everyone would do that. Tonight proved it." She turned back to the window, her voice lowering. "You have a daughter. You're raising her on your own, just like my father. And I know you're fighting every day to give Emma a better life." She turned back again, and for the first time that night, she truly smiled, a gentle smile. "And you're different from my father in one way. You still have time. Time for Emma to grow up, proud that her father is a good man. Time for you not to regret." Victoria's eyes shone through the glimmer of her tears, "And so do I. I still have time to change, to become the person my father always wanted me to be." 5 o'clock the next morning, Michael woke with a strange feeling, as if everything from last night had been nothing more than a hazy dream. But the navy tie still draped over the chair pulled him back to reality. He had taken the CEO home, had listened to her story about her father, and had connected with a person he never thought he would have the chance to reach. And now what? Would Victoria Stone remember anything? Or when dawn came, would she forget it all, leaving him once again as just the maintenance worker on the 15th floor? Michael shook his head, reminding himself, don't expect. He had done the right thing. That was enough. He put on his uniform, a blue polo shirt with the Stone Hospitality logo, black khakis, old sneakers. Emma was still fast asleep, curled up like a kitten. Michael gently kissed her forehead, whispering, "Daddy's going to work, princess." Emma stirred, her eyes half closed. "Come home early, okay? My play's this afternoon." Michael's heart sank. He had nearly forgotten. Today, Emma was performing in the school play as a little princess, something she had practiced for weeks. "I'll be back early, I promise." Emma smiled faintly and drifted back to sleep. Michael knew his long shift could make that promise fragile, but he would try. He had to try. 6:00 a.m. Michael entered Stone Hospitality through the back entrance for service staff, swiped his card, and rode the freight elevator to the 15th floor. The hallway was empty, the familiar scent of cleaning chemicals in the air, the hum of a vacuum echoing from somewhere down the corridor. He pushed his supply cart and got to work, mopping floors, wiping windows, emptying trash bins, checking restrooms. The repetitive jobs no one ever noticed. But today, it felt different. Everything seemed to carry more weight. He remembered Victoria's story, remembered Thomas Stone, a father who had done the same work with pride, not because it was glamorous, but because it was how he provided for his child. So do I, Michael thought. I work for Emma, and that's something to be proud of. 8:00 a.m. Michael was cleaning a window when he overheard murmurs near the elevator. Two office employees, a man and a woman, coffee cups in hand, speaking in hushed tones. "Did you hear about last night?" the woman asked. "The CEO being drunk?" "Yeah, heard it. It's viral now. Someone posted it in the internal group chat." "Oh God, bad one. But I heard someone took her home. Who'd be stupid enough to get involved?" "Not sure, just heard it was a maintenance guy." The man let out a sharp laugh. "Seriously? Probably thought that'd get him a promotion." Michael's hand froze on the glass, not because they mentioned in him, but because they assumed kindness always came with ulterior motives. He turned away, intending to slip off quietly. The woman spoke again. "That's not fair. Maybe he just wanted to help. Help. Around here, nobody helps without expecting something." "So what do you believe in then? There's no kindness left." The man fell silent, then sighed. "Kindness is a luxury here. People only care about titles, salaries, who climbs higher." The woman didn't reply. Michael walked away, his chest heavy. Even when you do the right thing, some will twist it. But he had no regrets. He did it for himself, for Emma, for the promise he made Sarah, 9:30 a.m. His phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Mr. Foster, this is Tiffany Nguyen, assistant to Ms. Stone. Ms. Stone would like to see you in her office at 10 room. Please arrange accordingly. Michael's heart pounded. He read it 3 times. See you in the office. What did that mean? A thank you, a warning, or worse, a dismissal for crossing the line. Robert passed by and saw Michael's pale face. Foster, you okay? I've been summoned to the CEO's office. God. Because of last night, Michael nodded. Robert patted his shoulder. Whatever happens, you did the right thing. Don't regret it. The elevator carried Michael up to the 30th floor, the executive floor, a place people like him almost never set foot. The doors opened. The hallway gleamed bright white marble floors, polished like glass walls of windows, revealing the Las Vegas skyline, expensive art lining the walls. Tiffany Nguyen, the young receptionist with long black hair and a practiced smile, stood as he approached Mr. Foster. Yes, Ms. Stone is expecting you. Please go in. She gestured toward the large wooden door at the end of the hall. The brass nameplate engraved, Victoria Stone, CEO. Michael drew a deep breath and walked toward the door of fate. Victoria's office wasn't just spacious, it was like its own world. Walnut floors, glass walls opening to a full view of the Strip, a sleek black granite desk, a ceiling-high bookshelf packed with volumes on business art and philosophy. On the wall hung a framed photo, a dark-skinned man in a worker's uniform, smiling beside a little black-haired girl, Thomas Stone and Victoria. Michael stared at the photo, seeming to stand still. That's the only picture I still have of my father. Victoria's voice came from behind him. Michael turned. She stood there not in her familiar power suit, but in a simple white blouse, black slacks, her hair tied neatly back. No heavy makeup, no glittering jewelry. She looked more real, more human. Her eyes still bore the faint redness of someone who had cried. Mr. Foster, she said softly, please sit. Michael lowered himself into the leather chair opposite her, unease still stirring inside him. Victoria sat as well, studying him in silence for a long while before speaking. First of all, I owe you an apology. Michael blinked. An apology to me? Victoria nodded. Apology for what happened last night. An apology for letting you see me in that state. And an apology because in the 3 years you've worked here, I've never truly seen you. She drew a deep breath, her voice trembling slightly. I forgot that every person in this company has a story, has a family, has dreams. I only saw numbers, titles, performance, and I forgot the people. Her eyes locked on his. But last night you reminded me. You didn't have to do that. You could have walked away like everyone else, but you didn't, and I can't forget that. Michael swallowed hard. You don't need to apologize. I only did what I thought was right. Victoria gave a weary smile. And that's exactly what shames me. In a world where everyone chooses what's advantageous, you chose what's right. She rose and walked to the photo, her fingers brushing the frame. I told you about my father, about the promise I forgot. But there's one more thing. Her voice cracked. 10 days before he died, my father said, Julie, if one day you forget who you are, remember this. You are the daughter of Thomas Stone, a man who worked with his hands but had an honest heart. That's what matters most. Victoria turned, tears streaking down her cheeks, and last night when I looked at you, I remembered. Silence filled the room. Victoria wiped her tears, her voice steadier now. I've thought about it all night. I want to change not just myself, but this company. She opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. I reviewed your file, Michael. 3 years of work, no tardiness, no complaints, consistently excellent performance. And more than that, she read aloud. 2023, Mr. Foster volunteered 4 extra hours to clean after a water pipe burst on the 12th floor. No request for overtime pay. 2024, Mr. Foster supported his older colleague, Mr. Robert Davis, when he injured his back. Volunteered to cover his shifts for 2 weeks. Victoria looked up. You are exactly the kind of person this company needs. And I never saw it. She set the file down, her voice growing firm. Michael, I can't make up for the last 3 years, but I can change the future. She produced an envelope. This is an official offer, Director of Employee Welfare, salary $65,000 a year. Full benefits, health insurance for you and Emma, dental retirement plan. Hours 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. No night shifts, no weekends. Michael sat frozen. Victoria continued, and beyond that, you'll have the authority to establish new policies for taking care of the service staff, so they're no longer invisible. She stood, extended her hand. Michael Foster, will you accept? Michael looked at Victoria's outstretched hand, then let his eyes fall to the envelope she was holding. $65,000 a year, that figure was twice his current income. Enough so Emma wouldn't have to wear secondhand clothes. Enough so he wouldn't live each month in fear of the electric bill. Enough for them to live, not just survive. But another voice echoed in his head. What will they say about you? He glanced at the door, imagining the whispers. He took advantage of her when she was drunk. Put on a show to get promoted. A director. He's just a maintenance guy. His throat tightened, his voice trembling slightly. Ms. Stone, I don't know if I deserve this. Victoria lowered her hand, her eyes warm but resolute. You're worried about what people will think, aren't you? Michael nodded. Honestly, last night I already heard the whispers. They think I helped you because I had an agenda. If I accept this job, they'll believe it even more. Victoria was quiet for a moment, then walked back to her desk and picked up a remote. Let me show you something. The large screen on the wall lit up. A video played security footage from the rooftop party the night before. The recording ran. Michael saw himself standing in the corner with Robert. Saw Victoria sitting alone at the bar, the crowd dispersing one by one. The camera captured the moment he hesitated, looked toward the exit, then turned back toward Victoria. The decisive moment he set his soda down, stepped toward her, caught her as she staggered and guided her through the crowd without looking at anyone, without caring about their stares. Victoria switched off the video and turned to him. Do you see? In that moment, you weren't thinking of gain or of what people would say. You only thought that someone needed help. She stepped closer. And that's why I believe you deserve this. Not because you helped me, but because you have something many here have lost: compassion. Victoria sat beside him, not as a CEO behind a desk, but like a confidant. Michael, I understand your fear and I don't blame you. But let me tell you something. She looked directly into his eyes. My father was mocked for being a maintenance worker. People said he had no education, no future. And he told me, they can laugh at my job, but they cannot laugh at how I do it. I work with pride, with dedication, and with a true heart. That's something no one can take away. Victoria gave a small smile. You're the same, Michael. People can say whatever they want, but they cannot deny your dedication and your heart. Michael's throat tightened. For the first time besides Emma and Sarah, someone truly saw him. But Ms. Stone, he rasped, I don't have a degree. I've never managed anyone. I don't know if I can do this. Victoria shook her head. Degrees can be earned, management skills can be trained, character cannot be taught. She laid a hand on his shoulder. And you already have the most important thing. You understand what it's like for the workers who keep this place running. You won't forget them, as I once did. She rose, extending her hand once more. So this time, will you accept? Michael looked at that hand, then lifted his eyes to the face that was no longer cold but filled with warmth. He thought of Emma, of the promise he had made Sarah, of wanting to give his daughter a better life. If I take this job, he said, his voice still shaky but resolute, I promise I will never forget where I came from. I will never forget the people like me. Victoria smiled the most genuine smile of that long night. That is exactly why I chose you. Michael stood, took her hand. I accept. Victoria smiled through glistening eyes. Welcome to your new role, Director Foster. And in that moment, Michael understood sometimes doing the right thing doesn't just change someone else's life, it changes your own. News spread like wildfire. Less than 2 hours after Michael left Victoria's office, Stone Hospitality was buzzing. Michael Foster, the maintenance man, has just been appointed Director of Employee Welfare. Walking through the 15th floor hallway, Michael felt the eyes on him cold as blades. Robert rushed over, wrapping him in a hug, his voice bursting with excitement. Foster, you did it. I'm so proud of you. But not everyone shared Robert's joy. In the corner, two accountants whispered, glancing at him. A security guard passing by shook his head, muttering, lucky bastard. And by the elevators, Natalie Harris, the marketing director, stood still, her eyes icy fixed on him without a word. Michael stepped into the men's restroom, intending to splash water on his face and regain composure. From the stalls came lowered voices punctuated with derisive laughter. He must have done something. No one gets promoted that fast. Yeah, probably had some leverage to blackmail the CEO. Or worse, maybe they've got some kind of relationship. Michael froze, hands gripping the sink, each word like a knife twisting deeper. He wanted to confront them, to shout back, but knew the more he explained, the less they would believe. He only splashed cold water on his face and walked out, his heart heavy. Day one and already like this. That afternoon, Michael's inbox pinged with an email from Richard Bennett, Director of Human Resources. Mr. Foster, please come to my office at 2 p.m. We need to discuss your position transition. At the appointed time, Michael arrived. Richard, a man in his 50s, sharp gray suit, gleaming gold-rimmed glasses, sat behind his desk, face unreadable. Sit down, Foster. Michael obeyed the air, heavy like an interrogation. I'll be direct. I don't agree with this decision. Michael blinked, why Richard's eyes locked on his unblinking. Because you have no management experience, no relevant degree, and most importantly, your appointment has sparked serious doubts about fairness in this company. He opened a file, flipping through pages. In the past 3 hours alone, I've received 7 complaint emails from senior and mid-level staff alike. They all believe your promotion is completely illegitimate. He paused, his tone lowering. And frankly, Foster, I share the same question. Why did Mrs. Stone choose you? What exactly happened last night? The words struck Michael like a slap, not because they were false, but because logically they made sense. If he were an outsider, perhaps he would have thought the same. Michael drew a deep breath, forcing calm into his voice. Mr. Bennett, I understand the suspicion, and I don't blame anyone. But I assure you I did nothing wrong. I only helped someone when they needed it. Ms. Stone, she saw something in me, something I never saw in myself. Richard leaned back, his face still carved from stone. Nice words, Foster, but in the corporate world, words hold no weight. Only actions prove anything. He rose, snapping the file shut. I'll give you 3 months of probation. If you can't prove yourself, I'll recommend to Ms. Stone that this decision be rescinded. Before Michael could reply, Richard opened the door, adding icily, and one piece of advice, don't let sentiment cloud your judgment here. Only results are recognized. Michael walked out heavier than when he'd walked in. 3 months, just 3 months to prove his worth. If he failed, he wouldn't just lose the job. He would lose respect and confirm the skeptics were right all along. He glanced at his watch, 3 p.m. Emma's play was set to start at 3:30. Pressure weighed from every side, but one thing was clear in his mind. No matter what happens, I can't let Emma down. That afternoon, Michael drove like a madman toward Emma's school. Las Vegas blazed under the sun, traffic jammed, horns blaring, but he didn't care. The only thing in his mind was the image of his little girl waiting for her dad at the stage. 3:25 p.m. The car shot into the parking lot. Michael hurried into the auditorium where the doors were already shut. The play had begun. He slipped quietly into the back row, panting. On stage, children were performing the play of a princess and a dragon. And then Emma appeared. She wore a purple princess dress, the old one from the discount store, but Emma had carefully sewn sequins on it to make it sparkle. Her clear voice rang out, I don't need anyone to save me, but I am grateful for those who stayed with me when I needed them. The line pierced straight into Michael's heart. He watched his daughter, smiling brightly on stage, completely unaware that her father sat silently in the dark, tears streaming down his face. In that moment, he understood everything he did wasn't for money, wasn't for a title, wasn't to prove anything to anyone. It was so Emma could stand there confident, happy, without worrying whether her dad could pay her tuition tomorrow. When the play ended, the audience erupted in applause. Emma bowed her eyes, scanning the hall, and then she saw Michael. Her face lit up, her small hands waving high, her lips mouthing, Daddy. He waved back, smiling through tears. After the performance, Emma ran out and leapt into his arm. Daddy, you came. I thought you wouldn't make it. Michael hugged her tightly. I promised, didn't I? I'll never let you down. Emma tilted her head, eyes glistening. Daddy, are you crying? No. Michael wiped his eyes, smiling. It's just, I'm so proud of you. Emma beamed. I'm proud of you too. When did you come? From the start, I saw everything. She hugged him tight, whispering, You're the best daddy in the world. And Michael knew no matter how many doubts swirled outside, this moment alone was enough to keep him standing firm. On the way home, Emma chirped, Daddy, did something good happen to you today? Michael smiled. Yes, I have good news for you, V. What is it? I got a promotion. Emma's eyes went wide. Really promoted to what? Director. Director of Employee Welfare. She bounced on her seat. Oh my gosh, I knew it. I told you to go to that party and you'd meet someone important. Michael chuckled. Yeah, you were right. I did. Her name is Ms. Stone. Is she nice, Daddy? He paused, thinking of Victoria, her story, her pain, and her resolve to change. She lost herself once, but now she's trying to come back. Emma was quiet for a moment, then asked Daddy, why do you always help people, even when they're not your friends? The question caught Michael off guard. He drove a little farther, thinking, then answered, because your mom taught me something. In this life, we'll meet many people. Some will help us, some will hurt us. But what matters isn't how they treat us, it's how we treat them. He glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror, because in the end, when we look back, we won't remember what we had. We'll remember what we gave. Emma thought for a moment, then said seriously, Daddy, I think Mommy would be very proud of you. Michael froze. Why do you think that? Emma smiled. Because Mommy always said a good person isn't someone who's never fallen. It's someone who falls, stands back up, and still chooses to do what's right. You've fallen many times when Mommy died, when you had to work double shifts, when you were tired but still played with me. But you never gave up. You're still good. Tears welled again. Michael had to pull over, unable to see the road. Emma grew worried. Daddy, what's wrong? He hugged her tightly, his voice breaking. I just love you so much, Emma. So much. That night, after Emma had fallen asleep, Michael sat alone on the sofa, opened his laptop. His inbox overflowed with congratulations, doubts, challenges, but he didn't open them. Instead, he quietly opened an old file, the letter Sarah had left before she died. My dearest Michael, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. I know you'll be in pain, but remember you are the strongest man I've ever known. Not because you don't cry, but because even when you do, you stand up and keep going. Teach Emma that. Teach her that kindness is not weakness, but strength. And one day, when you feel you're not good enough, remember to me and to Emma, you will always be our hero. I love you forever, Sarah. Michael closed the laptop and wiped his tears. He looked toward the bedroom where Emma clutched the old teddy bear her mother had left her. And in his heart, he whispered a promise, Oprah, I won't let you down. I'll prove that doing the right thing is never wrong. The next morning, Michael arrived at Stone Hospitality wearing a suit for the first time in years, not new but clean and pressed. The security guard at the executive entrance did a double take. Mr. Foster, I didn't recognize you. Instead of heading to his familiar maintenance locker, Michael rode the elevator to the 30th floor. Tiffany Nguyen showed him to his new office, not as grand as Victoria's, but with a window overlooking the strip, a mahogany desk, comfortable chairs. On the desk sat a small card, Believe in yourself as I believe in you. V.S. Michael ran his fingers across the desk's smooth surface, still not quite believing this was real. The maintenance man now had an office with a view, but instead of sitting behind the desk, he set the card down, straightened his tie, and headed back to the elevator. His first day wouldn't be spent in an office. He had other plans. The basement level of Stone Hospitality was a labyrinth of corridors, maintenance shops, laundry facilities, employee locker rooms, break areas. Places guests never saw, where the hotel's heartbeat truly resided. Michael stepped out of the service elevator, no longer in uniform, but still recognized immediately. Conversations halted, heads turned, some smiled, others looked suspicious. Robert approached grinning. Look, who's all fancy now? What brings the new director down to the trenches so soon? Michael smiled. I'm not spending my first day in that office. I want to hear from everyone what needs to change, what's working, what isn't. Robert's smile faded to something more serious. You're really going to do this, aren't you? Actually try to make a difference. That's the whole point of this job, isn't it? In the employee cafeteria. A stark contrast to the guest restaurants above, with their bright lights and chef-prepared meals. Michael joined the maintenance crew at their usual table. He pulled out a notebook as they ate their sandwiches. Mark, a plumber in his 60s, eyed Michael warily. So they made you a big shot now. What's your plan? Forget all of us. Michael shook his head. The opposite. I want to learn what you all need. What would make your jobs better? What problems need solving? At first, the responses were hesitant, guarded. Then slowly the dam broke. Stories poured out: understaffed departments, overloaded schedules, equipment breakdowns, safety concerns ignored, healthcare costs eating away at already thin paychecks. Carlos, an HVAC technician, removed his cap, revealing a receding hairline. My wife needs dental surgery. No insurance for that. $2,700 out of pocket. Linda, a housekeeper supervisor, showed Michael her schedule. 16 rooms per 8-hour shift. Used to be 12. Quality suffers, but if we complain, they say there are 20 people waiting for our jobs. As Michael listened, took notes, asked questions, something shifted in the room. The initial skepticism began to soften. These weren't just complaints. They were insights from people who kept the hotel running, but had never been asked for their expertise. By lunchtime, a small crowd had gathered. Security guards, kitchen staff, bellhops, word had spread that someone was finally listening. Amidst the conversations, Michael noticed a man standing apart from the others, gray-haired, weathered face leaning on a mop. Their eyes met, and the man gave a slight nod before turning away. Later, Robert explained, "That's Frank Wilson, 35 years here, longest-serving employee in the company. Doesn't talk much, but everyone respects him." Michael made a mental note to speak with Frank privately. A man with that much experience would have valuable perspective. The following morning, Michael received a message from Victoria. Conference room B, 10 a.m. Executive briefing. Bring your findings. Michael arrived early, heart pounding. This would be his first meeting with the hotel's senior leadership. Richard Bennett was already there, along with several other executives he recognized only vaguely. They spoke in hushed tones, falling silent when he entered. Victoria arrived precisely at 10, all business, in a charcoal suit. No trace of the vulnerable woman from the car remained in her professional demeanor. Good morning, everyone. As you know, I've appointed Michael Foster as our new Director of Employee Welfare, a position I've created to address concerning trends in our staff retention and satisfaction metrics. She gestured toward Michael. Director Foster has spent his first day researching conditions on the ground. I've asked him to present his findings and preliminary recommendations. Natalie Harris, seated near Richard, didn't bother hiding her eye roll. Richard glanced at his watch, radiating impatience. Michael stood, straightened the papers before him, and took a deep breath. This wasn't a maintenance report. This was his first test. After 24 hours of investigation, I've identified 5 critical areas needing immediate attention. First, our frontline staff are severely overworked. Housekeeping assigns 16 rooms per 8-hour shift. Industry standard is 12. This leads to corners being cut, injuries from rushing, and guest complaints about cleanliness. He detailed each issue methodically: inadequate healthcare coverage, equipment, maintenance backlogs, communication breakdowns between departments, hazardous working conditions in certain areas. Natalie interrupted. These all sound expensive to fix. Have you calculated the cost impact? Or are we just supposed to spend money because people are complaining? Michael met her gaze steadily. I have preliminary figures. The total package would cost approximately $1.8 million hourly. Gasps and murmurs around the table. Richard leaned forward. That's absurd. The board would never. Victoria raised a hand, silencing him. And the cost of not implementing these changes? Michael nodded, grateful for the opening. Our turnover rate is 42% annually for service staff. Industry average is 28%. Each replacement costs roughly $14,000 in recruitment, training, and lost productivity. With 800 service employees, that's about $4.7 million lost to turnover alone each year. He flipped to the next page of his report. Additionally, our workers' compensation claims from preventable injuries cost us $870,000 last year. Guest satisfaction scores have dropped 8 percentage points in the past 2 quarters, primarily citing cleanliness and service issues. That translates to approximately $3.2 million in lost revenue from guests who don't return or downgrade their stays. The room fell silent. Michael continued, total annual loss from these issues, approximately $8.7 million. My proposed investment of $1.8 million addresses the root causes of these problems with a projected 400% return. Victoria's lips curved into the faintest smile. Richard cleared his throat. These figures need verification. I'll need to see your sources and methodology. Of course. I've included all data sources in the appendix. Our own HR systems provided most of it. After the meeting, Victoria pulled Michael aside. That was impressive. Where did you learn to do financial analysis? Michael felt his face warm. Community college. 2 semesters of business courses before I had to drop out when Sarah got sick. I've been reading business books at the library ever since, trying to understand how companies work. Victoria's expression softened. You're full of surprises, Michael Foster. He shrugged. I just thought if I was going to convince anyone, I'd need to speak their language. Money. She nodded. You're learning fast, but be prepared. They're going to fight you every step of the way. I'm counting on it. That evening, Michael returned to a silent apartment. Emma was at a friend's house for a sleepover birthday party. The emptiness felt strange after such an eventful day. He loosened his tie, sank onto the sofa, and for the first time allowed the enormity of his new position to wash over him. His phone buzzed, an unknown number. This is Natalie Harris. We should talk. Monarch Lounge in an hour. The Monarch Lounge was the Crown's upscale cocktail bar, typically filled with high rollers and executives. Michael arrived precisely on time, feeling out of place despite his suit. Natalie sat in a corner booth, martini glass already half empty. I ordered you a drink. Her tone was neutral, impossible to read. I guessed whiskey. Michael slid into the booth. Good guess, but I don't drink on weeknights, not when I'm a single dad. She raised an eyebrow, taking another sip. Commendable. I'll get right to the point then. What's your angle, my angle? Natalie leaned forward, her voice dropping. Everyone has an angle, Foster. Victoria doesn't just hand out director positions to maintenance men, especially not after one night of whatever happened between you two. Michael felt his temperature rise. Nothing happened. I drove her home because she was in no condition to drive herself. We talked, that's all. She laughed, a brittle sound. Please, I've been here 5 years. Worked my way up, degree from Wharton's 60-hour weeks. And suddenly you're sitting in our meetings throwing around numbers like you belong there. Michael studied her face, the perfect makeup, the carefully constructed confidence, the barely concealed fury. Behind it all, he recognized something familiar. Fear, the same fear he'd felt his entire working life of being replaceable, dispensable. I understand why you're upset. I would be too in your position. But I'm not your enemy, Natalie. I'm not here to climb some corporate ladder or take anyone's position. Her eyes narrowed. Then why are you here? Because for 3 years, I've watched good people, skilled, people treated like they're invisible. I've fixed the same broken equipment over and over because the company wouldn't invest in proper replacements. I've seen housekeepers cry in the break room because their bodies are breaking down from the workload, but they can't afford to lose their jobs. Someone needed to speak up. She studied him over the rim of her glass noble, but nobility doesn't last long here. This is business, not charity. Michael leaned forward. That's where you're wrong. It is business. Happy employees provide better service. Better service means happier guests. Happier guests spend more money and come back. It's not charity, it's smart business. Natalie considered this, swirling the remaining liquid in her glass. Let's say I believe you. That still doesn't explain the Victoria's interest in you. Michael chose his words carefully. Ms. Stone is reassessing certain aspects of how the company operates. I happened to be in the right place at the right time when she needed someone who understands the frontline perspective. Her laugh turned genuine. You're diplomatic. I'll give you that. She drained her glass, setting it down with finality. I'm still not convinced you belong here, Foster, but I'll be watching. Prove me wrong. She stood collecting her purse. One piece of advice: Richard isn't just skeptical. He's actively working to undermine you. He had his own candidate for a similar position, and Victoria overrode him without consultation. Michael blinked, surprised by the information. Why tell me this? Natalie shrugged. Because unlike Richard, I care more about results than politics. If you actually improve things, I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. She walked away, leaving Michael with an untouched whiskey and a new understanding of the battlefield he'd entered. The next morning, Michael arrived at his office to find Frank Wilson waiting outside. The older man stood when he approached. Got a minute? Director Michael unlocked the door. Of course. Come in. Frank entered slowly, surveying the office with undisguised skepticism. Nice view. Very different from the basement. Michael gestured to a chair. Please sit. What can I do for you? Frank lowered himself carefully, joints stiff from decades of physical labor. I've been watching you, talking to the crews, asking questions, taking notes. I'm trying to understand the real issues. Frank's weathered face remained impassive. 35 years I've been here, seen 6 different owners, 12 general managers, countless directors come and go. Most made big promises, few delivered. Michael nodded. I understand your skepticism. Frank leaned forward, eyes suddenly intense. You've been given a chance nobody in your position has ever had. You could actually change things. But if you fail, if this is just another PR stunt that goes nowhere, it'll crush whatever hope these people have left. The weight of Frank's words settled on Michael's shoulders like a physical burden. I don't intend to fail. Frank stood, his message delivered. Good. Because they're starting to believe in you, and that's dangerous. As he reached the door, Frank turned back. One more thing. There's a file in the old record room. Personnel archives from 1998 to 2005. Might want to take a look at how things used to be here. Before the cutbacks, before the Ice Queen. After Frank left, Michael sat motionless, absorbing the conversation. There was more at stake than his promotion, more than proving himself to Richard or Victoria. People, real people with families and struggles, were beginning to hope. And hope, as Frank had indicated, could be dangerous when disappointed. Late that afternoon, Michael found the records room, a forgotten corner of the administrative floor, filled with filing cabinets and boxes of papers predating the digital era. Dust covered everything. Clearly, few people ventured here anymore. He located the personnel files Frank had mentioned. Hours passed as he paged through employment records, policy manuals, meeting minutes. A picture emerged of a different Stone Hospitality before Victoria had fully taken control, before cost-cutting became the priority. There had been an employee medical clinic on site, subsidized childcare, a profit-sharing program for all employees, not just executives, training programs that created advancement paths from entry-level positions to management, all dismantled between 2018 and 2020, the years Victoria consolidated her control and focused on expansion. The most revealing document was a memo from Thomas Stone himself, dated a year before his death. In it, he outlined his vision for the company. Our greatest asset is not our property or our brand, but our people. Treat them with dignity, reward their loyalty, invest in their growth, and they will deliver experiences that bring guests back year after year. Without this foundation, we build our success on sand. Victoria had clearly abandoned her father's philosophy, yet now she seemed determined to return to it. What had changed her mind so dramatically? Was it really their conversation in the car? Or had something been building for years? As Michael replaced the files, his eye caught something unexpected, a newspaper clipping tucked into one folder. The headline read, "Local casino employee dies after delayed medical treatment." The story detailed how a maintenance worker at a small casino had suffered a heart attack on the job, but delayed calling an ambulance because he had no health insurance. By the time he sought help, it was too late. The casino wasn't named, but the date 3 months before Thomas Stone's diagnosis made Michael wonder if this incident had influenced the employee clinic's creation. Had Thomas witnessed a colleague's death and determined to prevent similar tragedies? Michael carefully photographed the key documents with his phone. These weren't just historical curiosities, they were blueprints for what Stone Hospitality could be again. The following week passed in a whirlwind of meetings, research, and planning. Michael drafted a comprehensive proposal he called the Employee Dignity Initiative. It included raising minimum wage to $15 an hour from 12 dental coverage for all full-time employees, flexible working hours for those with children, and a monthly recognition program where 3 outstanding employees would receive $500 bonuses. When he presented it to Victoria in her office, she frowned as she read through the details. Do you know how much this will cost? He answered bluntly, $1.88 million per year, as I outlined in the executive meeting. But with projected savings from reduced turnover, fewer workplace injuries, and improved guest satisfaction, we should see a net positive return within 18 months. Victoria remained silent, continuing to read. Then she looked up. You found my father's files, didn't you? Michael nodded. Frank Wilson pointed me to them. Of course he did. Victoria's voice carried an emotion Michael couldn't quite identify. Somewhere between nostalgia and regret, Frank was one of my father's closest friends. He never forgave me for dismantling the programs my father built. She closed the proposal, tapping her fingers on the cover. The board will resist. They'll say we can't afford it while expanding to the new property on Fremont Street. Michael held her gaze. If we don't take care of the people who hold up the foundation one day, this whole building will collapse. Victoria's eyes widened slightly. She remained silent for a moment, then smiled softly. My father's words. Almost exactly. She stood making her decision. I'll bring it to the board. In the meantime, start with the recognition program. That's something we can implement immediately without board approval. By his second week, Michael organized a gathering with over 200 frontline employees in the vast employee cafeteria. Everyone was curious, skeptical. The room buzzed with whispers and sideways glances as he stepped onto a small platform where the lunch tables had been pushed aside. Silence fell gradually as Michael surveyed the room, faces he knew from maintenance, faces he recognized from housekeeping, security, kitchen staff. Many he'd never seen before, but all shared the same expression: cautious hope mixed with deep skepticism. One employee, a woman in her 50s who had cleaned rooms at the Crown for 20 years, stood and asked the question on everyone's mind. Who are you? Why do you care about us? Michael stepped forward. No fancy microphone, no slick PowerPoint, just him and his real story. My name is Michael Foster. 3 months ago, I was just like you, working night shifts, mopping floors on the 15th, worrying about rent at the end of the month. But then one night I did something simple. I helped someone who needed help, and that changed my life. He looked directly at the rows in front of him. But today I'm not here to tell you about me. I'm here to tell you this: you matter. His voice cracked with emotion. You are not just maintenance workers, not just housekeepers, not invisible people. You're the ones who keep this hotel clean every day. You're the ones who keep thousands of guests safe. You're the ones who repair the breakdowns so everything keeps running. And starting today, I promise you will never be forgotten again. He announced the new welfare program, the recognition awards, the wage increases under consideration, the dental coverage proposal. Thunderous applause filled the hall, but not everyone was convinced. An older worker, Frank Wilson, stood up, his voice skeptical. You talk a good game, Director Foster, but words are easy, actions are hard. Michael nodded firmly. You're right, so give me 3 months. If I don't deliver, you have the right to demand my dismissal. Frank quietly nodded. Fine. 3 months. As the meeting dispersed, Michael noticed Richard Bennett standing at the back of the room, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Their eyes met briefly before Richard turned and left without a word. That evening, Michael received another message, this time from Robert. Need to talk, not over phone, meet at Rosie's Diner, 9 p.m. Rosie's was a 24-hour place near the employee parking structure where night shift workers often grab coffee before their shifts. Michael arrived to find Robert already in a corner booth, coffee cup between his hands. Thanks for coming, man. Robert's voice was hushed despite the clatter of dishes and murmured conversations around them. I overheard something today. Something you need to know. Michael slid into the booth. What is it? Robert leaned forward. Bennett and Harris were talking in the executive lounge. They don't know I was fixing an outlet behind the plants. They're planning to sabotage you. How Bennett's asking department heads to delay implementing any of your initiatives. Harris is gathering complaints, any negative feedback, any mistakes, any problems they can pin on you. They're building a case to present to Victoria after your probation period. Michael absorbed this anger, mixing with resignation. I'm not surprised. Bennett made it clear he doesn't think I belong here. Robert's expression darkened. It's more than that. I heard Bennett say, we need to prove Stone made this decision while impaired. They're suggesting she wasn't in her right mind when she promoted you. Michael's stomach tightened. He'd known there would be resistance, but this was more coordinated, more personal than he'd anticipated. Why tell me this, Robert? You're putting yourself at risk. Robert's face softened. Because you've always had my back, man. When I hurt mine last year, you covered my shifts for 2 weeks. You didn't have to do that. He paused, voice growing quieter. And because I believe in what you're trying to do here, my kid needs braces. That dental coverage would be life-changing. Michael reached across the table, grasping Robert's shoulder. Thank you. I won't forget this. As Michael drove home, his mind raced. He wasn't just fighting institutional inertia. He was facing active sabotage from people with power and influence. They weren't just skeptical of his qualifications. They were determined to protect the status quo at any cost. He pulled into his apartment complex, killing the engine but remaining in the car thinking. Emma was at home with Mrs. Rodriguez from next door watching her. He should go in, but he needed a moment to process. His phone buzzed a text from Victoria. How did the employee meeting go? He typed back. Better than expected. Some skepticism, but mostly hope. The response came quickly. Hope is powerful, but be careful with it. I learned that the hard way. Michael stared at the message. There was a story there, something Victoria hadn't shared yet. He typed again. Richard and Natalie are working against us, actively undermining the initiatives. The typing dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I know, it's a test. For both of us. Get some rest, Michael. Tomorrow we start changing things for real. The next day, Michael arrived early, a new determination in his step. If Bennett and Harris wanted to play political games, he would counter with results so compelling they couldn't be ignored. He started with the recognition program. Rather than a traditional employee of the month selected by management, he designed a peer nomination system. Anyone could nominate a colleague who had gone above and beyond, with a committee of frontline workers making the final selections. When the first 3 names were announced at the end of the month, the impact was immediate and profound. Maria Rodriguez, 20 years as a housekeeper, known for leaving small towel animals for children in guest rooms. Carlos Vasquez, maintenance worker, who stayed 16 hours during a power outage, manually operating the backup generators. Linda Chen, security guard, who had learned basic phrases in 7 languages to help international guests feel welcome. All 3 cried when they received their awards because it was the first time in their lives someone had said thank you and truly meant it. In the executive dining room afterward, Natalie approached Michael's table. Cute ceremony. Very touching. But do you really think $500 bonuses and public praise will solve systemic problems? Michael met her gaze evenly. It's a start. Recognition costs almost nothing, but means everything. Try it sometime with your own team. Her eyes narrowed. My team consistently delivers the highest marketing ROI in the industry. They know they're valued. Do they? Or do they just know they're successful? There's a difference. She opened her mouth to respond, but was interrupted by Richard appearing at her elbow. Harris, we need to discuss the Q3 projections. Director Foster, I trust you're documenting all expenditures for your little initiative. The board will want a full accounting, of course. I'm tracking everything down to the penny. Feel free to review the reports anytime. Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. Oh, I will. After they left, Victoria slid into the seat across from Michael. I see you're making friends. Michael sighed. Not exactly. But the program is working. You should have seen their faces when they received the recognition. It wasn't about the money, it was about being seen. Victoria's expression softened. My father used to say that too, that all people really want is to be seen, to know their work matters. I found something else in the archives. Michael hesitated, then continued. A news clipping about a maintenance worker who died because he delayed medical treatment. He had no insurance. Was that why your father started the employee clinic? Victoria's face paled slightly. James Morales. He worked with my father for 15 years, had 3 kids, died on the way to the hospital. I'm sorry, she shook her head. Don't be sorry, be angry. That's what my father was. Angry enough to change things. She stood abruptly. That's why I'm bringing your full proposal to the board tomorrow. Not just the recognition program, all of it. The wage increases, the healthcare expansion, everything. Michael stared up at her. The board will push back. Let them. She straightened her jacket. It's time I remembered whose name is on the building. My father built this company on certain principles. It's time we return to them. The following morning, Michael received an urgent text from Victoria. Board meeting moved up. Conference room A. Now. He rushed to the executive floor, straightening his tie in the elevator. When he arrived, the tension in the room was palpable. Victoria stood at the head of the long table surrounded by stern-faced board members. Richard sat near her, a satisfied smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Ah, Director Foster, just in time. Victoria's voice was calm, but Michael detected an undercurrent of strain. I was just explaining to the board your employee dignity initiative. William Garrett, the board chairman, silver-haired, perpetually tanned, fixed Michael with a disapproving stare. Ms. Stone has presented your proposal. Nearly $2 million in additional annual expenses during an expansion phase. Forgive my bluntness, but this seems ill-timed at best, irresponsible at worst. Richard jumped in smoothly. Furthermore, the recommendations come from someone with no business background, no management experience, and frankly, questionable qualifications for his position. Michael felt the weight of every eye in the room. This was the moment they'd been orchestrating his public humiliation before the people who could terminate his position with a single vote. But rather than intimidation, he felt a curious calm settle over him. He approached the table, setting down his folder. "Mr. Garrett, members of the board, thank you for considering this proposal. I understand your concerns about timing and marketing, but I'd like to share some additional context that might influence your perspective." From inside the folder, he withdrew several documents. "This is the original mission statement of Stone Hospitality, written by Thomas Stone himself." He read aloud, "To create a workplace where every employee is valued, respected, and empowered to deliver exceptional guest experiences." He placed another document on the table. "This is data from the years when Stone Hospitality had comprehensive employee benefits, similar to what I'm proposing. During that period, turnover was 18% lower than today. Guest satisfaction scores were 12 points higher. Revenue per available room was 9% above the industry average." The board members exchanged glances. Michael continued, "And this," he pulled out the newspaper clipping about James Morales. "This is why Thomas Stone created the employee health clinic that was dismantled 3 years ago. A man died because he couldn't afford health care. A preventable tragedy." William Garrett frowned. "That was unfortunate, but business decisions can't be based on isolated incidents or emotional responses." Michael nodded. "I agree completely. That's why my proposal is backed by financial projections showing a full return on investment within 18 months and continued savings thereafter." "This isn't charity, it's sound business strategy," Richard interrupted. "Those projections are based on assumptions that can't be verified. You're asking us to gamble millions on the word of a former maintenance worker with no financial expertise." The dismissive tone made Michael's jaw tighten, but before he could respond, Victoria spoke. "Actually, I've had our finance department review Director Foster's projections. Their analysis confirms his numbers are, if anything, conservative." She placed a thick report on the table. "The data supports what my father always knew instinctively. Treating employees with dignity doesn't just benefit them, it benefits the bottom line." The boardroom fell silent as members paged through the report. Finally, William Garrett looked up. "I'll need time to review this thoroughly. We'll reconvene next week for a final decision." Victoria nodded. "Thank you, gentlemen. That's all for today." As the board members filed out, Richard lingered, whispering something to Natalie, who had observed from a side chair. Their glances toward Michael made their continued opposition clear. When everyone else had left, Victoria exhaled deeply. "You did well." Michael shook his head. "They're not convinced, not yet, but you planted seeds of doubt. That's a start. What happens if they reject the proposal?" Victoria's expression hardened into something reminiscent of her Ice Queen persona. "Then I remind them who controls 51% of this company. I've compromised on my father's values for too long. I won't do it anymore." Michael studied her face, the determination, the resolve, the echoes of the vulnerable woman from the car, still visible beneath the surface. What changed? "Before that night, before our conversation, you were headed in a different direction." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know what scared me most that night? Not the embarrassment, not the phones recording me. It was looking into a mirror and seeing a stranger. Someone my father wouldn't recognize. Someone I didn't want to be." She straightened a stack of papers unnecessarily. "When you helped me, when you listened, it was like hearing my father's voice again after a decade of silence." She smiled faintly. "Sometimes we need someone to remind us who we're supposed to be." 3 days later, Emma received an invitation to her first proper slumber, voyage at her friend Lily's house. She was ecstatic, but Michael found himself unexpectedly emotional as he packed her overnight bag. "Daddy, it's just one night." Emma's voice carried amused exasperation as she watched him triple-check her toothbrush in pajamas. "I'll be back tomorrow." "I know, Princess." Michael zipped the bag closed. "It's just, we haven't spent a night apart since Mommy died." Emma finished softly, "But Lily's mom is super nice and they have a pool and we're going to make cookies and it's going to be amazing." Her enthusiasm was contagious. Michael smiled, ruffling her hair. "Of course it is. And I'm glad you're going. I'll miss you." Emma hugged him fiercely. I'll miss you too, Daddy. But it's good for you to have a night off. Maybe you can do something fun too. After dropping Emma at Lily's house, a spacious suburban home with a landscaped yard that made their apartment seem even smaller by comparison, Michael returned to empty rooms that felt strangely hollow without his daughter's presence. He wandered restlessly, straightening already tidy cushions, opening and closing the refrigerator. The silence pressed in uncomfortably. When his phone rang, he answered immediately, grateful for the interruption. It was Victoria. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all. Emma's at her first sleepover. I'm just rattling around the apartment. Perfect timing then. I need your help with something. Can you meet me at the hotel in an hour, basement level old record room? The basement corridors were eerily quiet after hours. Michael found Victoria already in the records room, surrounded by open boxes and scattered files. Sorry for the mystery, Victoria looked up as he entered. I didn't want to discuss this over the phone. I've been searching for something my father left behind. Michael surveyed the chaos. What exactly? She held up a worn leather journal, his personal records. I remembered he kept detailed notes about the business thing he didn't trust to company files. I've been looking for evidence to counter the board's resistance. She opened the journal to a marked page. Look at this. My father documented everything. The cost savings from preventative health care through the employee clinic. The revenue increases directly tied to staff retention. Even guest comments specifically mentioning long-term employees by name. Michael scanned the meticulous handwriting. Your father was thorough. Victoria nodded. He was building a case year by year, proving that employee welfare and business success weren't opposing forces, but complementary ones. She turned another page. And here's the clincher, the employee ownership program he was developing before he died. Profit sharing for everyone, not just executives. She looked up, eyes bright with purpose. This is how we win the board over. Not just with financial projections, but with proven history. My father already ran this experiment, and it worked. As they pored over Thomas Stone's journals late into the night, Michael gained new insight into both the man and his daughter. Thomas had been a visionary, someone who understood that true leadership meant lifting others up, not standing on their backs. And Victoria, beneath her carefully constructed corporate persona, was her father's daughter after all. She'd lost her way, but the compass still worked. When they finally emerged from the records room, the hotel was deep in its nighttime routines. The distant hum of vacuum cleaners, the occasional cart rolling past. Victoria stretched stiff from hours hunched over documents. Thank you for coming, for helping with this. Michael nodded. Thank you for trusting me with it. They walked together toward the elevators, footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. Victoria paused. You know, I haven't felt this purposeful in years, like I'm finally doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Michael smiled. Your father would be proud. She turned to him, eyes suddenly vulnerable. Do you really think so? I know so. You're honoring his legacy in the most meaningful way possible. Not just with words or memorials, but by carrying forward his values. Victoria's expression softened. Sometimes I think he sent you. That night when everyone else turned away, you were exactly what I needed, what the company needed. In the quiet of the basement corridor, far from the glittering casino floors above, something shifted between them, a mutual recognition that transcended their professional roles. For a moment, they were simply two people connected by unexpected circumstances, by shared purpose, by the strange workings of fate. Victoria broke the silence, her voice soft but determined. We're going to change things, Michael. Not just the policies or the benefits, the whole culture. We're going to make this a place where people matter again. As Michael drove home to his empty apartment, those words echoed in his mind. People matter. It was such a simple concept, yet so often forgotten in the machinery of business, in the rush for profit and growth. The weight of the challenge ahead was enormous resistance from the board, active sabotage, from Richard and Natalie's skepticism, from long disillusioned employees. But for the first time, Michael felt certain they could overcome it. Not because of strategies or data or business cases, though those were necessary, but because at its core, their cause was fundamentally right. He thought of Emma sleeping peacefully at her friend's house, of Sarah who had taught him that kindness was strength, not weakness, of Thomas Stone's journal filled with evidence that doing right by people was also doing right by business. Some truths, it seemed, needed to be rediscovered by each generation. And sometimes it took an unlikely partnership, a maintenance man and a CEO, to remember them again. 3 months passed like a whirlwind. Michael's employee dignity initiative unfolded in carefully planned stages. First came the recognition program, then expanded healthcare benefits. Finally, the wage increases. Each implementation tracked meticulously with data proving the connection between employee satisfaction and business performance. The resistance he'd anticipated materialized immediately. Department heads delayed paperwork. Budgets mysteriously shrank. Equipment requisitions vanished. But for each obstacle, Michael developed a workaround, often enlisting the very employees affected to help solve the problems. Robert proved an invaluable ally navigating the complex informal networks within the hotel. Frank Wilson, initially the most skeptical, gradually shifted from opposition to grudging respect as Michael consistently delivered on his promises. No grand speeches, just steady results. By month's end, the first hard data arrived: guest complaints down 17%. A maintenance crew innovation saved $14,000 in monthly operational costs. Housekeeping turnover dropped 22%. Each small victory, Michael documented meticulously, building a bulletproof case that employee welfare and profitability weren't opposing forces. At the 3-month mark, Victoria called a special executive meeting. The boardroom atmosphere crackled with tension as Michael distributed his final probationary report, 42 pages of detailed analytics and projections. As you can see, he concluded, employee satisfaction has risen from 45% to 73%. Turnover has dropped 35%. Productivity increased 22%. Richard Bennett studied the report with uncharacteristic silence. Unlike previous meetings, he offered no immediate rebuttal. Finally, he closed the folder. These figures are compelling, if they hold. The following afternoon, Richard called Michael into his office. The HR director's expression remained unreadable behind his gold-rimmed glasses. Michael braced himself for another battle. Foster. Richard began tapping his fingers on Michael's report. I've independently verified your data with finance. The numbers are sound. Michael nodded cautiously. I've been in corporate management for 27 years. I've seen dozens of initiatives like yours, well-intentioned programs that prioritize employee comfort over business fundamentals. They invariably fail. Richard leaned forward. I was certain yours would too. I was wrong. The admission hung in the air between them. I still have concerns about your unconventional background, Richard continued, but I cannot argue with results. Consider your probation concluded. Successfully. He stood extending his hand. Welcome officially to the leadership team, Director Foster. That evening, Michael received a text from Robert. Frank wants to see you, maintenance break room, now. Michael found Frank waiting alone in the windowless space, a worn envelope on the table before him. The crew wanted you to have this, Frank said without preamble. Inside was a card signed by over 150 employees. On the cover, handwritten in careful block letters, thank you, Director Foster, for seeing us. Each signature carried a brief note. My daughter's toothache finally got treated. First time I haven't worked in pain in years. Finally sleeping through the night without worrying about bills. Michael struggled to maintain composure as he read each message. These weren't corporate metrics. They were human lives improved. You know, Frank said, his weathered face softening, in 35 years, I've seen a lot of promises made from that executive floor. Most weren't worth the breath used to speak them. But you, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Thomas Stone would have liked you. Coming from Frank, no higher praise existed. I didn't do this alone, Michael replied. It was everyone, Victoria taking the risk, you keeping me honest, the staff trusting the process even when they had every reason not to. Frank nodded. That's exactly why you're succeeding where others failed. You understand it's not about you, it's about us. As Michael headed home, he realized something had fundamentally shifted. He'd entered this role expecting it would be temporary, that eventually the corporate machine would reject this foreign element from the maintenance department. But now, impossibly, he was becoming a permanent part of the system. And more remarkably, the system itself was changing. Victoria's transformation proved equally profound. The Ice Queen nickname faded as employees witnessed her regular visits to different departments, asking questions, remembering names, implementing suggestions from frontline staff. The quarterly executive lunches now rotated through all departments, with Victoria sitting beside housekeepers and maintenance workers instead of just fellow executives. One Wednesday evening after a particularly grueling board meeting where they'd finally secured approval for company-wide implementation of the employee welfare programs, Victoria invited Michael to dinner. Nothing fancy, she specified. I'm too tired for restaurants. Would you mind coming to my place? I'll cook. Michael hesitated, conscious of crossing a boundary from professional to personal. But curiosity won out. I didn't know you cooked. Her laugh carried through the phone, one of my few remaining connections to the person I was before becoming CEO. My father taught me. Says more about his skills than mine, I'm afraid. Victoria's penthouse surprised him, not the sterile showcase he'd expected, but a warm, lived-in home filled with books, art, and family photographs. The kitchen showed signs of regular use: copper pots hanging from a rack, herbs growing in windowsill planters. She worked with unexpected ease, chopping vegetables while explaining, Dad believed everyone should know how to feed themselves properly. He called it life's most essential skill. Michael leaned against the counter, watching her hands move with practiced efficiency. Sarah felt the same way. Started teaching Emma when she was 4. They'd make these elaborate weekend breakfasts together. Mentioning Sarah felt natural, not painful. Victoria nodded, understanding the significance. Tell me about her if you'd like to. Over a simple but delicious pasta dish, Michael shared stories of Sarah, her quick wit, her passion for teaching her final brave months. Victoria listened intently, asking thoughtful questions without pity or awkwardness. She sounds remarkable, Victoria said as they moved to the living room with cups of coffee. Emma has so much of her in her, doesn't she? Every day I see more of Sarah in her. It's beautiful and heartbreaking simultaneously. Michael paused, then added, I've never really talked about Sarah like this with anyone. Not since. Sometimes we need distance before we can look back clearly, Victoria offered. I couldn't talk about my father for years. Now I find myself sharing his stories constantly, like I'm making up for lost time. She pointed to a shelf lined with leather journals, his diaries. I've been reading them chronologically, one entry each night. Michael smiled. That explains how you keep quoting him so perfectly in meetings. My secret weapon, she admitted, pulling one down and opening to a marked page. Listen to this. The true measure of a business isn't quarterly profits, but whether employees bring their whole selves to work each day. Money follows meaning, not the reverse. Visionary, Michael observed, and now through you his vision is being realized. Victoria's expression sobered. I abandoned it for so long. Chose expansion over community, metrics over people. I became everything he warned against. But you found your way back, Michael reminded her, and that's what matters. As the evening continued, their conversation flowed naturally from business to personal histories to philosophical musings on leadership. When Michael finally checked his watch, he was shocked to discover it was nearly midnight. I should go. Emma will be wondering, he began. Of course, Victoria nodded. This was nice. Thank you for coming. At the door, an awkward moment hung between them, more than colleagues now, but the exact nature of their relationship undefined. Victoria solved it by handing him a small wrapped package. For Emma, if it's appropriate. Michael opened it to find a beautiful leather-bound journal, the cover embossed with Emma's name. My father gave me my first journal when I was her age, Victoria explained. He said writing down our thoughts helps us understand who we really are. She hesitated, suddenly uncertain. I thought she might like having that connection to Sarah, somewhere to keep her memories. Michael felt unexpected emotion rising. Such a simple gesture, yet so profoundly thoughtful. This means more than you know, thank you. The elevator ride down from Victoria's penthouse gave Michael time to reflect on the evening. Something was developing between them. Something neither had planned for, but which felt as natural as it was unexpected. The new dynamic faced its first real test when Emma confronted Michael after school one afternoon. He'd noticed her unusual quietness in the car, responding to his questions with uncharacteristic single-word answers. At home, she retreated to her room without explanation. Following her, Michael found his daughter clutching the journal Victoria had given her, her expression troubled. Emma, what's wrong, princess? She looked up, eyes searching his face. Daddy, are you going to marry Ms. Stone? The question hit like a thunderbolt. What? No, why would you ask that? Lily said her dad saw you and Miss Stone having dinner at Rosie's, and you talk about her all the time. Michael sat beside Emma, choosing his words carefully. Ms. Stone and I work closely together. We're becoming friends. That's all. But you like her. Not a question, an observation delivered with a child's piercing insight. Michael hesitated. He'd never lied to Emma. He wouldn't start now. I do like her. She's a good person, trying to make things better for a lot of people. But that doesn't mean we're getting married or that anything would change between you and me. Emma's real concern emerged, her eyes filling. What about Mommy? If you like Miss Stone, does that mean you don't love Mommy anymore? Michael gathered her into his arms, his heart breaking for her confusion. Oh, Emma, I will always love your mother, always. Nothing could ever change that. She buried her face against his shoulder. I'm scared you'll forget her. That's impossible, he whispered into her hair. Your mother is part of me, part of you. We couldn't forget her even if we tried. She gave us each other. Emma pulled back slightly. Then why do you need Ms. Stone? The question deserved a thoughtful answer. Michael considered carefully. It's not about needing, sweetheart. People can have different places in our hearts. Your mother will always have hers. Nothing changes that. But that doesn't mean there can't be other people who matter to us too. Emma processed this, her brow furrowed in concentration. So you can love Mommy forever and still like Miss Stone? Yes, just like you'll always love me, but you also love your friends, your teachers, people who are important in your life. Her expression lightened slightly. Miss Stone is pretty, and she gave me this nice journal. Michael smiled, relieved at the shift in mood. She is, and she was thinking of you specifically when she gave you that. She lost her dad, you know. She understands what it's like to miss someone you love. Emma nodded thoughtfully, then surprised him. Maybe I could meet her sometime. Like not just at your work, but for real. Would you like that? We could have dinner together sometime? Yeah, I want to see if she's nice to you. Emma's protective instinct emerged. Because you deserve someone nice. Michael hugged her again, marveling at her resilience. I love you so much, Emma. I know, Daddy. I love you too. The next morning, Michael arrived at work to find the executive floor buzzing with unusual activity. Staff hurried between offices, phones rang constantly, and Victoria's assistant, Tiffany, looked harried, managing a flood of calls. What's happening? Michael asked, concerned. Tiffany lowered her voice. Someone leaked internal documents to the Las Vegas Business Journal. There's a major story about the company's financial performance before and after your welfare initiatives, including confidential board deliberations. Stone called an emergency meeting in conference room A. She wants you there immediately. Michael found Victoria facing down several angry board members. William Garrett, the silver-haired chairman, was red-faced with fury. This breach of confidentiality is outrageous. Board discussions plastered across the business pages. Victoria remained composed. I agree it's concerning, William, but perhaps we should focus less on the leak itself and more on the substance of the article. Michael slipped into an empty chair as Richard passed him the newspaper. The headline read, Stone Hospitality's Employee First Strategy Delivers Record Results After Board Resistance. The article detailed the internal struggle over Michael's initiatives with direct quotes from board members who had opposed the changes despite promising financial projections. Now that the programs were proving successful, these same executives appeared obstructionist and short-sighted. This has your fingerprints all over it, Foster, Garrett accused. Who did you talk to at the Journal? Michael met his gaze steadily. No one, sir. I've never spoken with any reporter about internal matters. Victoria interjected. Michael has shown nothing but professionalism. The focus should be on our response, not baseless accusations. From the corner, Natalie Harris spoke up unexpectedly. I think we need to embrace this, not fight it. All eyes turned to her in surprise. The article essentially says we resisted changes that are now proving successful. She continued, lifting the newspaper. Fighting that narrative of it only makes us look worse. Look at the stock price. It's up 3% since the market opened. Investors like the results they're seeing. Richard nodded slowly. Natalie's right. From a PR perspective, our best move is to own this story. Acknowledge past hesitation, but emphasize our commitment to the new direction. Garrett's face reddened further. So we just accept being portrayed as obstructionists. We accept being portrayed as a company willing to change course when evidence supports it. Victoria replied evenly. That's not weakness, William. It's good governance. The tension gradually dissipated as the conversation shifted from blame to strategy. After the meeting adjourned, Victoria pulled Michael aside. My office, 15 minutes. When Michael entered her office, Victoria stood by the window, her back to the door, shoulders tense. Victoria, he asked quietly. She turned her expression, troubled. I need to ask you something, and I need absolute honesty. Of course. Did you leak those documents? She held up a hand as he began to protest. I'm not accusing you, I just need to know. No, Michael answered firmly. I would never betray your trust that way. She studied his face, then nodded. I believe you. Do you have any idea who might have? Victoria sighed. Several possibilities. Not everyone on the board is happy with my leadership. This could be an attempt to force a confrontation. She moved to her desk, picking up the newspaper. The irony is, as Natalie pointed out, this actually helps us. The results speak for themselves. Your 3-month data has exceeded even our optimistic projections. So what happens now? A determined smile replaced her concern. Now we double down. That's genius. Amen. The quarterly all-staff meeting is next week. Perfect timing to address this publicly and reaffirm our commitment to the new direction. After leaving Victoria's office, Michael headed to the maintenance department for his weekly check-in with the crews. He found an unexpected visitor waiting, Natalie Harris. We need to talk, she said without preamble. Not here. My office? Now. Once inside her sleek marketing department office, she closed the door firmly. I know who leaked the documents. Michael stared. Who? Richard. Her declaration hung in the air. He thought the article would embarrass Victoria, force the board to question her judgment. He never anticipated the positive market reaction. Why are you telling me this? Natalie paced, tension visible in every movement. Because I'm tired of the games. I opposed you because I thought you were a publicity stunt. Victoria's attempt to rehabilitate her image from that party. I was wrong. What you're doing is working. She stopped, facing him directly. And Richard is planning something bigger. He's been meeting privately with Garrett and 2 other board members. I think they're trying to force Victoria out. Michael absorbed this alarm, growing. Have you told Victoria? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Natalie's expression revealed discomfort at the admission. Richard and I have been close. He believes I'm still on his side. The implication was clear. Natalie could provide valuable intelligence about Richard's plans. Michael considered her carefully. Why should I trust you? A thin smile crossed her face. You shouldn't, not completely, but I respect results, and your results are undeniable. She hesitated, then added in a quieter voice. And my father was a hotel maintenance man in Atlantic City for 30 years. He died with calloused hands and a broken body. What you're doing here, it would have changed his life. The personal admission shifted Michael's perception of her. Behind the polished exterior was someone shaped by her own history. All right, we'll work together, but Victoria needs to know everything. I'll talk to her tomorrow. Natalie nodded. Watch Richard carefully. He doesn't lose gracefully. The Stone Hospitality quarterly all-staff meeting transformed the hotel's largest ballroom. Employees from every department gathered, executives in tailored suits alongside housekeepers still in uniform. The traditional seating arrangement had been abandoned. Management and frontline staff now mingled throughout the room. Victoria took the stage to thunderous applause, not the polite, obligatory clapping of previous meetings, but genuine enthusiasm. Gone was the distant executive in power suits. Today she wore a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back naturally, her expression open and engaged. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. She paused, looking across the room. I want to begin by acknowledging something. Many of you have probably seen the recent article about changes at Stone Hospitality. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some might expect me to downplay that story. I won't. Because at its core, it's about something important, our journey back to the values this company was founded on. Victoria moved to the edge of the stage, abandoning the podium. My father started this company with a simple belief that treating people with dignity wasn't just right. It was good business. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that. I prioritized growth over the people who make that growth possible. You, all of you. The room fell completely silent. I'm not proud of the leader I became. The Ice Queen, I believe some of you called me. Scattered, nervous laughter acknowledged the nickname. It was fitting. I had frozen out the most important part of this company, its heart. Victoria's gaze found Michael in the wings, and her expression softened. 3 months ago, something happened that changed everything. One person chose kindness when everyone else chose indifference. That single act reminded me who I was supposed to be. She gestured toward Michael, inviting him on stage. Director Foster didn't just help me that night. He helped all of us by reminding me what matters most, that a company is its people, not its profit margins. As Michael joined her, the applause startled him with its intensity. Housekeepers, maintenance workers, kitchen staff, people who had once been invisible were now on their feet, some with tears in their eyes. The initiatives we've implemented aren't revolutionary, Victoria continued. They're a return to basics: fair wages, good healthcare recognition for extraordinary work, and most importantly, a culture where everyone is seen and valued. She extended her hand toward Michael. I'd like Director Foster to share more about what we've accomplished together and where we're headed next. Michael approached the microphone, momentarily overwhelmed. 3 months ago, he'd been mopping floors. Now he addressed the entire company as a peer leader. 3 months ago, I was fixing leaking toilets on the 15th floor. He began, earning appreciative laughter. Today I'm standing here because one person saw value and perspectives that had been overlooked. But this isn't about me. He shared not just metrics and projections, but stories: Maria teaching younger housekeepers her techniques, Carlos mentoring maintenance staff, Frank's safety committee, reducing workplace injuries by 18%. The success we're seeing isn't because of new policies on paper, Michael concluded. It's because when people feel valued, they bring their whole selves to work. They solve problems creatively. They support each other. This isn't charity, it's recognizing that our greatest asset has always been the people in this room. The applause was thunderous. As Michael returned to his seat, Victoria squeezed his hand briefly, her eyes communicating what words couldn't: gratitude, respect, and something deeper neither was ready to name. That weekend, Michael invited Victoria to dinner at a modest family restaurant near his apartment. Emma's idea, not his. She'd been insistent about meeting Victoria properly. As they waited for her to arrive, Emma fidgeted nervously. "Remember," Michael said gently, "Miss Stone is just coming as a friend." Emma nodded seriously. "I know, Daddy. I just want to make sure she's nice enough for you." Michael suppressed a smile at his daughter's protective instinct. When Victoria arrived wearing jeans and a simple sweater rather than business attire, Emma studied her with the careful attention children give to potential changes in their world. The initial conversation was awkward, with Emma responding politely but guardedly to Victoria's questions. But when Victoria mentioned The Secret Garden was one of her favorite childhood books currently, Emma's obsession, something shifted. "Did your dad read it to you?" Emma asked the first question she'd initiated. "Sometimes. Other times I read to him. He worked very long hours like your dad does," Victoria answered, her voice softening with memory. "But he never said no when I asked for a story." Emma's posture relaxed slightly. "My daddy never says no to stories either, even when he has to work early." From that connection, the conversation warmed gradually. Emma described her school play, her rock collection, her best friend Lily. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions that showed she was truly paying attention. By dessert, Emma was showing Victoria the journal she'd given her, proudly displaying entries and drawings. While Emma was distracted by an ice cream sundae, Victoria whispered to Michael, "She's remarkable. So perceptive, so articulate." Michael nodded, pride evident. "She's the best of Sarah. All her compassion, all her insight." Victoria hesitated, then asked softly, "Does it bother you talking about Sarah with me?" "No," Michael answered honestly. "Sarah will always be part of our lives. Anyone who truly cares about Emma and me needs to understand that." "I do understand." Victoria met his gaze directly. "And I respect the place she holds in both your hearts." After dinner, walking back to their apartment building, Emma unexpectedly slipped her hand into Victoria's. "Do you want to see my rock collection? I have 23 different kinds." Victoria glanced at Michael, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd love to, Emma." In their modest apartment, Emma proudly displayed her treasures: rocks, books, school projects, while Victoria engaged with each item, asking questions that delighted the girl. Michael observed from the doorway, his heart full at the sight of these two important people in his life, forming their own connection. Later, after Emma had gone to bed and Victoria prepared to leave, she paused in the doorway. "Thank you for tonight, Michael. It meant a lot to me that you both wanted me here." "Emma approves of you," he smiled. "She told me when I tucked her in." Victoria's expression brightened. "Did she? What did she say?" "She said Ms. Stone listens like she really cares what I'm saying. Most grown-ups just pretend." Victoria blinked rapidly, emotion rising unexpectedly. "That might be the nicest compliment I've ever received." As they stood in the narrow hallway, something unspoken passed between them, a recognition that whatever was developing between them had just crossed an important threshold. Victoria broke the moment first, her professional demeanor returning slightly. "Natalie came to see me today, told me everything about Richard. Are you concerned?" "No." Her confidence returned. "Let them scheme. We're building something they can't tear down with boardroom politics, a company people actually want to work for." Her hand found his briefly. "Besides, I'm not alone anymore. I have good people around me now. People I trust." 1 year after the night that changed everything, Stone Hospitality gathered for a special event, the inauguration of the Thomas Stone Memorial Scholarship Fund for employees' children. Emma, the first recipient, stood proudly beside Michael as Victoria presented the award. "Education was my father's greatest hope for me," Victoria explained to the crowd. "Now Stone Hospitality extends that opportunity to our extended family." Michael, now Vice President of Culture and Employee Welfare, addressed the audience. "A year ago, I was fixing leaking faucets. Today, I'm here because one person remembered her father's vision for what this company could be." He gestured to the employees filling the room. "But the real success story isn't me or Miss Stone. It's all of you. It's Maria's suggestion that improved our room cleaning protocols. It's Carlos's maintenance training program that's become an industry model. It's every person who finally felt valued enough to bring their best ideas forward." Richard Bennett, now a supporter rather than adversary, nodded in agreement from the front row. Beside him sat Natalie Harris, whose intelligence on the attempted boardroom coup had proven invaluable months earlier. The confrontation had ultimately strengthened Victoria's position, with two board members resigning in the aftermath. That evening, Michael and Emma stood on the hotel's rooftop terrace, the same place where everything had started a year before. The Las Vegas Strip stretched before them, a galaxy of human ambition. "Daddy," Emma asked thoughtfully, "do you think Mommy would like Miss Victoria?" Michael considered this. "I think she would. Your mom valued kindness and authenticity above everything else. Victoria has both." Emma nodded, satisfied. "I think so too, and I think she makes you happy." "You make me happy, Emma," Michael assured her. "Nothing will ever change that." "I know," Emma leaned against him, "but it's okay for you to be happy in other ways too. Mom would want that." From the mouth of a 10-year-old, Michael received the permission he hadn't been able to give himself. When Victoria joined them, the three stood together looking out at the city, a tableau unimaginable a year earlier. From such different starting points, they had converged here through choices that seemed small at the time but proved transformative. In the end, Michael reflected, the most powerful changes often begin with the simplest actions: a maintenance worker stepping forward when everyone else steps back, a CEO remembering her father's wisdom, a child offering her blessing with uncluttered wisdom. The true measure of kindness isn't in the reward received, but in the person we become through our choices. A truth as profound as it is simple, as ancient as it is urgent, in a world that too often mistakes wealth for worth and power for purpose.